Today I'm going to talk about vintage style Gibson truss rods. Hey everybody, this is Matt from Texas Toast Guitars. Thanks for watching. So I have a cool project to talk to you guys about and show you a little bit about. And it's all thanks to Ceasar Rosa from Los Lobos. He contacted us and wanted us to build him a Gibson style double cutaway Les Paul Jr. And I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of the guy, but he's kind of into that whole vintage thing and he wanted all the vintage stuff. A lot of it we don't do. So Chris and I have had to kind of dig through some of our old tools and figure out, try to remember how to do some of this stuff, refigure out, relearn how to do it. He wants the 17-degree headstock angle, the vintage truss rod, a lot of stuff that we no longer use, but again, he's a vintage kind of dude, so he wants a vintage kind of guitar. Anyway, it's been a lot of fun to do that, and I want to show you guys how we did it and hopefully give you some ideas. But before we jump into the video, if you haven't clicked the like button, do so. If you haven't clicked the subscribe button, please do. And if you appreciate content like this, you might want to go over to our Patreon page and consider becoming a member. Even $1 a month goes a long way to helping us bring you guys neat stuff like this. Can't do Patreon? We totally get it. Share the video as many places as you can possibly imagine and help us grow the channel that way. Help us beat the algorithm. It's Skynet, people. Oh, by the way, we also have YouTube has a join thing. So if you want to help us out that way, and it's sort of like PBS only with more Coors Light, you can help us out that way too. You can join on YouTube, Utreon, whatever they call it. All right. So anyway, I get it. I know I used to put that at the back end, but nobody watched it. So let's jump in, and I'll show you guys how we put a vintage style truss rod. This is a piece of mahogany, Honduran mahogany that we got from Dan at Tone Wood Experts. This was already ready, and I thought, man, I need to be making a video. So I ran out to the home center, and I got a 4x4, and I'm going to show you how we install the truss rod. But first, we need to get the wood prepped, and we need to get the headstock angle on there. And I figured since I didn't show you on the mahogany, I'll show you on this surrogate board. I'm not going to make a neck out of this. I just want to show you guys how to do it. All right, let's go into the wood shop where it's noisy, and we'll get started. I'll show you how to do it. So the first thing that I want to do is clean up 2 edges on my joiner, and then I'm going to go over to the planer, and I'm going to make the opposite sides parallel to the sides I ran through my joiner. Alright, so now I have a flat side here and a flat side here, and they should be 90 degrees to each other, perpendicular to each other. Now I'm going to go over to my thickness planer, and I'm going to do this side, and we should have a square, nice board. I'm not worried about what the dimensions are, because this is just kind of to show you guys what's up. You'll need to match the dimensions to the necks that you're going to be building, but you get what I'm doing here. All right, let's go over to the joiner. I'm sorry, the planer, and we'll do this side and this side. All right, so now my block is square. Well, all the angles are 90 degrees to each other. It's got 4 sides. I'm not going to worry about which way the grain is oriented, because I'm not making a neck out of this. But if you were using a nice piece of mahogany or maple or something, and you want you ideally want the grain to be vertically oriented in relation to the fretboard. But we're not going to worry about that here, because this is just for funsies, right? Okay. So the next thing we need to do is we need to figure out a we need to put our headstock angle on here. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball this, again, because I'm not putting a real headstock on it. And we need to go 17 degrees because that's the old school Gibson headstock angle measurement. So I've got my line here, and I've got my protractor, and you told your geometry teacher you would never use this kind of stuff. All right, 5, 10, 15, 16, 17 degrees. Okay? I'm going to draw a straight line from the apex of this line here to the little point that I made, and that'll get me really close. And in the plus column, when we cut this part out on the bandsaw, we'll have a really nice doorstop. Okay, I cut pretty close to my line here, so what we need to do now is we need to either sand or plane this to the line, and because I have a joiner, that's what we're going to use. Okay, gang, I got my 17-degree headstock angle here, and we're just about ready to start figuring out how to lay in our truss rod and where all of the pieces are going to go. We are going to make the truss rod just like this one here. This is a piece of 3/16 round stock. It's threaded on one end with 1032 threads. It's got a special kind of washer with teeth on it, and it's a half washer. It's toothed and a 1/4-inch acorn nut. It's threaded in, again, with 1032 threads into this 3/8 piece of round stock, and then it is peened over on the back. Now, we are going to put this in a curve. It has to be in a curve. So we're going to put it in a curve. Did I tell you it has to be in a curve? Everyone who tells you it doesn't have to be in a curve is lying to you, or they don't know what they're talking about. Because it has to be mounted in the neck in a smiley face curve like this. Okay? So don't go to forums and look up. The old ones used to be straight. They're not. And if they were, they weren't for long because they wouldn't have worked. Okay. Someone's out there thinking, well, why wouldn't they work? Because what has to happen, gentle viewer, is in order for the truss rod to do anything, it has to try and straighten out. If it's already in a straight line, it can't get straighter, it'll just get tighter. This will actually attempt to straighten and will adjust the neck. The other one won't do a damn thing. So, let me see. Oh, you know what I should do? I should tell everyone it has to be mounted in a curve like this. Okay, all right, enough with that. So, I have got my little neck profiling jig here, and I can look on it and see that the neck thickness with the fretboard at the first fret is 0.895, and at the 11th fret is 0.98. So I drew out all of that information here on my board, and I wrote all that stuff down, and I figured out in the center, or at the 11th fret, it needs to be 0.98 minus my 1/4-inch fretboard, and at the first fret needs to be 0.895, and I basically made that arc, and it works out great, and I figured out where the center needs to be so that I know where I'm adjusting the most, and that is about 8 3/8 from the edge of my 0 fret here. So what I did, guys, is I took all of that information and I transferred it onto this piece of MDF. Okay? And then I drew that line out, that arc, and I used, the way that I drew the arc is I took this piece of metal and I just bent it so that I took the places, the 2 spots where I knew what the depth was going to be, and I made it that, and then I traced it and I cut it out. And yeah, so now I have a jig that lets me know the exact arch of my truss rod. And my truss rod will, in fact, here's a hunk of free truss rod material. My truss rod will fit in there just like this. Okay, it has to be curved. Did I already tell everyone that, Chris? Yeah, okay. So it's going to go in like that, and we're going to put another piece of maple on top of that and do it the old school way, and that's going to keep the truss rod touching the bottom, and it's going to keep it curved. All right? Because it has to be curved. So, we built this jig, and we did some tests. Where's our test? So we did some tests, and we had to modify some things and get it exactly right so that everything worked properly. And I feel really, really good about the results. So I'm going to show you guys how we did it, and then you don't have to see me, oh, we need to make this little part a little bit different. So, so you're going to have to do that on your jig. And no, I don't know what that exactly is. You're just going to have to kind of figure it out, but it's all going to make more sense the further along we go, okay? So, on my template, I have marked where my 0 fret is, and I have marked a line, and you're going to see a cool tool here in a moment that's going to impart this curved truss rod slot on our neck. Okay, but first I have to find the 0 fret on the neck blank. We know that's where the headstock ends, and we're going to figure the 0 fret is right about there. Okay, so we're going to lay our neck blank on our jig here. We're going to line up where the 0 fret goes, and we're going to get it all nice and neat, and then we're going to attach our neck blank to our jig. Ready? Okay, before we do all that stuff though, I forgot, Chris just reminded me, we need a center line on our neck, which is about 3 3/8. So that would be, what's half of 84.5? 42.25. And then I'm going to draw that center line, which you will see here in a moment why I need to have this center line on here. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I can attach my my neck blank to my router sled. And to do that, of course, I'm going to use a little bitty bit of double-sided tape. That's what they call it in Great Britain, Chris. Did you know that?
Did not know that, Matt.
Yeah, they call it double-sided tape.
Oh.
Here in the United States, they probably call it double-sided tape too. But here in our shop, we call it double-stick tape.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why we do.
I call it double sticky tape.
But we do,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. We have our own, we kind of have our own language for a lot of things. Don't
Yep.
we? Yeah, we do that.
You go back to the what's up?
Oh, you know what's that?
Okay, yeah. Yep.
Okay, I'm super discombobulated because we don't normally make necks like this. While I was drilling for the index pins that hold the neck blank to the template or the jig, Chris reminded me I need to drill this 3/8 hole here, and I'm like, crap. So fortunately, the step that I just did, the step you just saw me do, means that I can put this neck back on my sled over and over and over again, and it'll always be in the same spot. But Chris is 100% right. I need to find where my 3/8 hole goes. And since we used this truss rod last time, we're just going to use it again, so we can just duplicate what we did. So that is 16 1/8 inches from the 0 fret. So now we're going to go and drill a 3/8 hole for this stud here, and that will fit in our this will keep the truss rod from moving around. We could wait and do it until after the rod is the channel is cut, but then we'd have to kind of guess at the center. So this is a great way to do it, and we don't have to guess at the center. All right, let's go back to the drill press and drill this hole. And then we'll come back and put it back on, put the neck blank back on the sled, and then we'll route the curve ed channel in the neck blank. Okay. Now, before anybody asks me how deep is this hole, we're going to have to pay closer attention on the actual neck that we're using to build Ceasar's guitar. On this one, we're not building a neck with it, so I just went in about an inch, and that's fine. But again, remember, if you're doing this on your actual neck, make sure you measure and don't go in deeper than it needs to, or when you go to carving the neck, you might see that hole, okay? Okay, gang, remember when I told you that we were going to show you a super cool tool? Well, this is it. This is a 3/16 wide slot cutter, and it's got a 1/2 inch shaft. Now, the 1/2 inch shaft is actually going to run along this, this length of my curved slot. So it's going to go this way. I'm not going to use a bearing because this doesn't have a bearing. I'm not going to use a collar around the bit because I don't want to. You certainly could, and if it makes you feel better about using this tool, then you certainly should. Okay, and then that way the collar would ride on the jig, not the actual bit itself. Okay. I need to find the center. Boy, actually, that looks pretty close. I think Chris might have sneaked in here and did this before.
No, I think you just dimensioned the board the same.
We just did. We just got it right. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but our slot cutter is just about exactly in the center of our center line there. So we're good to go. Okay, I've got my router is slowed down to the lowest possible speed it can go, which I think is 10,000. So it's going to sound a little funny. We're going to go ahead and run this through. I'm actually going to do something I've never done on camera, and that is wear one of these safety shields in addition to my safety glasses, and we're just going to go for it, and we're going to show you what it looks like the whole way through. Okay, so that should do it. That looks actually really good, you guys. I'm going to take this into to the other room, and we're going to take some measurements, some depth measurements, so you can see that it is in fact curved on the bottom. Okay? All right, so I have done everyone a favor, and I've come out of the wood shop where it's noisy, and we're back here in the workshop, and I'm going through and I'm measuring the depth of my slot here. Back here we are 0.336. Let's move up a little bit and see where we are. Should be a little deeper. 0.539. Here we are in the center. 608. Move up a little bit. 586. Move up a little bit. 471. 390. So you can tell what's happening is it's arcing and it's deeper in the center, just like we want it to be. Okay? So, this is kind of a cool thing I'm going to show you guys, because people often wonder, well, how do you get that cool thing that Gibson has where this toothed washer fits against the neck? And the tool we're going to use to do that is called a spot facer. We're going to put this in the vise. I'm going to show you just how easy it is. Okay. So this is a spot facer, and it's got a long 3/16 rod, and it's going to follow the channel, and it's going to cut for the Gibson style adjustment nut. Now, we want to stop our spot facer right about, what was it, about 1/4 of an inch?
About 1/4 of an inch. Yeah.
We want to stop the spot facer right about here. And what will happen is our truss rod will go in like it's supposed to. And remember, we need to have a space for that little screw that holds the truss rod cover there. So we need to have a little spot right here that has wood. Okay? And we will. Okay, so I got my spot facer, and it's just chucked up in a drill. Like I say, I've got a 3/16 rod here, and it's going to follow the arc of the channel, and we're going to cut. See, sometimes it doesn't always work out for a ninja.
Did it just come out or did it break?
I don't know. Looks like it broke. Yeah, it looks like it broke.
Okay.
So what you just saw is my spot facer broke. Tools don't last forever, guys. So we got it all repaired. Well, all we really had to do was put a new 3/16 shaft on it. No big deal. It just broke, and I think it's because I was, I've used this a lot in the past. So yeah, so just this rod broke, and we were able to sort it out. So man, let me tell you, I'm glad we did that on this piece of Douglas fir rather than that nice piece of mahogany, which we're going to do next. But let's just finish this one up just for fun. Okay, so everything looks pretty good. And now all we have to do, I think we might need to go a little bit further. We'll go ahead and seat our truss rod. And we'll get this end. You can see how it's curved. Okay. Tighten up our acorn nut here, and this toothed washer will keep it from moving around. And as you can see now, we can we've got some flex in here, which is exactly what we want. The next step is going to be gluing our maple filler piece in there. But since this is a practice neck, we're not going to bother with that. We pretty much are sure we can figure out how to glue a piece of maple into a board. So we're going to move over to the mahogany neck blank and do exactly what we just did to this Douglas fir neck blank. That's really soft.
It's super soft.
So hopefully we won't have any issues with this like tearing out. I don't think we will.
I don't think we will.
All right, gang, let's go to the mahogany blank and do exactly the same stuff. All right, our mahogany blank already has the headstock ready to go. We already have our center line. We already have our 0 fret. We do need to measure for the 3/8 hole, and I want to say it was 16 1/8, and it is. Okay, so our blank is all done. We've got our slot. We've got the space for the 3/8 stop at the end. We're all spot faced for the toothed half washer and the acorn nut. Now, what we need to do is we need to build a filler strip that goes in here and presses our vintage style truss rod down and glue it in. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a little piece of maple, which was the traditional wood to use, and we're going to put that in. We're going to get that to where it just fits, and then we're going to trim it to match the underside of our slot. We're actually going to use the exact same template that we did to make this, the exact same jig rather, and that's going to be perfect. All right, so let's go grab some maple and get it thicknessed. So as luck would have it, I have a piece of maple already that, as you can see, is a nice snug fit. So rather than have a bunch of minutes of me sending maple through the thickness sander, we're just going to go ahead and use this. Fortunately, it's flame maple, which is awesome for tone. So let's go back in and draw out the bottom of the slot onto this maple, and we'll be good to go.
That's a piece from one of our tops that Steve resawed.
It is, yeah.
That we said we'd never use.
Mm-hmm. So I marked my 0 fret, and I drew a line here. Now this is the one I want to save, and it's going to go inside my my channel on top of my truss rod. Now, at some point, someone's going to go, you know what you should do is use a ball end mill for the bottom, so you remove even less wood, and then go back and use a ball end mill. No, it's so little wood. There's no point in doing that, okay? So just get it out of your heads. All right, let's cut this out, and we're going to save it and put it in there. know what? That's pretty tight. I almost think we should probably run it through the thicknesser just a tick.
So you have some room for glue.
Yeah, because if not, we're gonna
To pound it in.
Bash it in there, and that's not going to be super cool. Let's just take the littlest little bit off.
Okay.
That's pretty good, huh?
Mm-hmm.
We do need to trim off this bit before we get to the or else it won't go down.
Yeah, it won't go down.
All right, I got my maple filler strip. I got my truss rod ready to go, and we're just gonna plop this dude in. I don't know what that was. I think it was this. Okay. All right. So we're going to plop this dude in. This is looking really good so far, you guys. And then we're going to press in our maple filler strip, and we need to trim this area here just a little bit so that when we put our this curve or with this half washer with the teeth on it, I don't know if you guys can see the teeth. You see the teeth in there? We want the teeth to be able to engage all the way down. So we're just going to sand this a little bit probably until we get it exactly right, and then we'll put some glue on here and glue everything down, and it'll look like $100 million. I think that looks right as rain, guys, and I'm not worried about all this material up here because that's going to get ground down. But you can see that everything's fit, and our little toothed washer will go up against this spot-faced piece of the mahogany, and the acorn nut will thread right on there, and this is going to be super cool. All right, let's get some clamps and some glue on here. Okay, got some clamps, got my truss rod, got my filler piece. We're just going to put a little glue along the bottom here. Come on now, glue. Oh, come on. And we have dry fit everything, so everything is fitting good and looking good. All right, that looks really good, you guys. We're going to come back here in a little while, maybe tomorrow because it's late today. We'll trim off the excess maple, and we'll run the top face that the fretboard's going to get glued on to under the thickness sander, and it will be ready for step 2. And yeah, so we'll see you guys in the morning. Okay, everybody, just like that, it's the next day. And just like I promised you, I'm going to come in and we're going to pull these clamps here. And we can inspect our setup. So this maple piece is glued in. What we're going to do now is we're going to turn it on its side and rough cut out this excess on the bandsaw. And then we'll run it over the thickness sander and make everything nice and smooth. Okay, so here we go. The truss rod is all installed. The neck looks good, and yeah, get a load of that stuff. So yeah, here we go. Neck is ready for the next couple of steps. But I don't think I want to do a video on that, so this is probably the last that you will see of this until the guitar is done. But I promise I will do a video with Ceasar when the guitar is finished. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about, I mean, this is cool, and it sure works well, but I don't think that there are a lot of advantages to using this style of neck construction over something a little more modern or maybe a little less traditional. So a couple of observations here. One, this truss rod, while it does work, I don't see any real advantage to. It takes a long time to do because you have to cut a slot, put the rod in, and then glue another piece of wood in on top of that. So as opposed to a more modern two-way truss rod, you cut a slot, plop it in, and the fretboard gets on, done. Not a big deal, but it does take time. The other thing is to use this counterbore spot facer thing like Gibson does, and work with this truss rod, you have to have a pretty steep neck angle, or this counterbore would be way out here. Imagine if the neck angle was flatter, the access hole would be way out here. It would have to start quite a bit further out. So that's one of the reasons I think that Gibson probably still uses this this very aggressive headstock angle. I think it's too much. I think it's a considerable amount too much. But this is the traditional truss rod that they use, so they kind of have to do something like that if they want to be able to adjust it, right? I mean, I'm sure you could come up with a new way, but you know, Gibson buyers would go, "Hey, we don't like that. We want it to look like the original." So that's another thing. Gibson has to make guitars that you know, for their customer base, which is guys who like traditional stuff, you know, and that there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you like Gibson, cool, happy meal for you. They'll make you as many guitars as you want, and they're going to be really cool, and you're going to love them. But people who say, well, they should change the headstock, and they should add a volute, and they should do, people don't like that. They kind of like the, you know, the classic traditional stuff. So, so yeah, I probably won't start switching to, you know, to this. We used to make guitars like this, and they're cool, but we have come up with our own way to do, you know, necks and truss rods and headstock angles that we like even more. The other thing is, unless you use a scarf joint, which I'm not a fan of, you use a lot more lumber. So if this were a longer blank, you could probably get two, you know what I mean? You could have one going this way and one going this way on the same blank. But to use a 30-inch blank like this, you probably need a 36-inch blank to get two of them out of that, which that would be okay too, because all of this, I don't know if you can see, but once we cut this neck out, there's not going to be a lot of extra wood left for, you know, another neck. So that's going to waste a bunch of timber. Yeah, you could do this with a scarf joint, but I'm not really a mega huge fan of scarf joints. And again, you go back to that idea that the super awesome guitars from the 50s didn't have scarf joints, so people who buy Gibsons and like traditional stuff probably aren't going to go for a scarf joint either. Just, you know, observation. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something about truss rods and how Gibson may have done it back in the day. I'm sure they have a CNC machine that cuts that channel now. I actually got this. The technique that we used, I actually kind of swiped from a picture from the Hamer factory from back in the 80s. So that's, I think we're pretty close to that's how they did it. They used a shaper instead of a router, but you get the idea. So yeah, so kind of a cool little walk down history lane there. So I look forward to showing you guys the rest of this, but I hope you have a great week, and we will see you next time. So until then, this is Matt at Texas Toast, reminding you that if you're so smart, start your own YouTube channel. That's what I did. Thanks for watching, you guys. Take care.